Hey there! Welcome to Trapping the Time. I'm Pablo, and today I'm going to introduce you to another watch from a brand that has captivated us. I'm talking about MIDO, and its Ocean Star 600. In the summer of last year, before Rui lent us the Ocean Star 200 GMT to review, that is, before he knew the brand by hearsay, a friend of Trapping the Time, William from Fuerteventura, greetings William, contacted us to offer us this second-hand piece. But practically new, like brand new. I would have hardly noticed this watch, since at that time I hardly knew the brand, so that, more than hearsay. Besides, it is not a cheap watch either. Its official RRP is 1,890 euros, totally out of my reach, and maybe that's why I had never noticed it. What I can say now, in March 2024, is that, thank you very much, William, because it has been one of my best purchases, and by far, it is the best watch in my collection. Let's take a look at it and I'll explain why. To begin with, it is my first certified chronometer, my first COSC. In addition, it is also my first MIDO, a brand that has earned my respect and appreciation. Its arrival only confirms what I thought when I held its brother in my hand. MIDO is a brand that deserves much more attention than it has, at least in Spain. It is a great unknown for most people. I think we are missing something. My goodness, what a feeling of quality it transmits. Visual and tactile. It's a barbarity how it feels. And in the time I've had it, rather than looking for flaws, I've only found one. And it's that hole above the helium valve. I'm not used to seeing a case with a hole in the cheek piece. Although I imagine it has its raison d'etre as a part of the decompression system of the watch. But, as I don't understand any of this, and I see how robust it is, I take it for granted that it's not going to be a problem for its longevity. If anything, I'm more concerned about how it can fill with dirt. But having said that, everything else is praise. Impressive, this Ocean Star 600 that we are going to see in depth. It is a tool watch for divers, analog. Driven by an automatic caliber, the well-known Powermatic 80, but in this case with chronometer certification. And that's the first thing we're going to check, how its chronometry performs. As we already know, it has 80 hours of power reserve and beats at 21,600 alternations per hour, 6 beats per second. It supports automatic and manual winding, and has a second stop. As you can see, that upside-down position unbalances a little bit an average that is still excellent. 1 second a day. It's time to thank our sponsors Minor Watches and Berny Watch. And to all these friends you see on the screen, also to our members, for their great support. We leave you the link to our Patreon in the video description, in case you want to check all the advantages that our patrons have. Thank you very much. Its measures are 43 and 5 millimeters in diameter, 49.8 between poles, but we must consider that the end link is male, so the length increases quite a bit to 55 millimeters. It is 14.5 in height or thickness, 22 millimeters between handles, and weighs 220 grams. Its official RRP is 1,890 euros in this version with black PVD, which is the most expensive. Steel finish is available for 200 euros less. This time for a change, I'll start backwards from how I usually start. For the clasp. When I took the Rio out of the box, the bracelet came with the pad size. Too big for my wrist. Nothing unusual, you always have to remove links to fit it. But it didn't take long to realize that, in this case, I wasn't going to need it, and that's because it has the best Army's fitting system I've seen so far. By pressing the smaller loops, you can slide to adjust the length millimeter by millimeter without the hassle of having to touch the pins, and in 2 seconds. You can easily adjust the bracelet to perfection. First point in its favor, which I would rather say a highlight. It is a mechanized clasp, very solid and well finished. It consists of 3 folds and closes by pressure, is released with the side loops, and its finish is completely satin, both outside and inside, except in that narrow profile on both sides, which you see is polished. A clasp at the height of the watch, just like the bracelet. Solid steel in all links, but the best thing is its presence. The central links polished black and brushed sides of a lighter tone. I would say graphite color. It feels very robust and needs to be, as the watch is heavy. Being a 600 meters, I imagine the steel and sapphire must be wider. Let's go with the caseback, which is perceived to be of quality. That central drawing, I think, is the highest relief I've seen so far. But the drawing seems to me too childish and not very evocative of the watch on it. I don't know, a few small waves and a starfish look more like a Nivea ad than that of such a capable diver. Above MIDO and below Ocean Star shining on a matte background, and all around, different references and nomenclatures, except one, all in low relief, very thin and barely visible. We arrived at the box, and I must say that when you know its weight, you expect it to be visually a big hulk. Something similar to what happens with the Invicta Grand Diver, which weighs the same. But no. You see it sideways, and except for the Invicta Grand Diver, it weighs the same. You see it from the side, and except that the bezel is quite thick, you do not notice that it is a 600 meters. Visually you don't. You notice it at the weight. But you see that case band, and it doesn't look much different than any office diver or 200 meters. Nor does its overall height seem excessive for such a watch, 14 and 5 millimeters, which to the eye does not seem so. What I do not know if I'm convinced is that gap, or the helium valve engraving. I do not like that they write in that area. Although it is hardly seen, it is not like in the Invicta. Except for that hole, through which I fear that dirt will accumulate. Otherwise it is a very nice box, especially when viewed from the right side where the crown guard gives it a more badass look. On the other, it is clear that it is a tool watch, and adding both, that I do not know if I did not like so much at first. The hole and the discreet engraving, I have ended up seeing it as something that makes a difference, and the truth is that I like it more and more. The crown, in addition to giving continuity to the aesthetics of the whole, as it is polished and black, and around it has that brushed graphite. Just like the bracelet, it fits perfectly between its protection. But it is large and protrudes much more at the bottom than at the top, and therefore it is very easy to unscrew. The feel and handling are really good. The bezel, well, you see, is blunt and very visible. It has black ceramic insert, and the markers are bars, poles, and Arabic numerals. And to the north, the classic inverted triangle made with lumen, not only the drop, as well as all the indexes on the bezel and dial, painted with a luminous paste of a quality that dazzles, metaphorically and literally. What a great lumen. Let's put it next to a Seiko so you can see its performance. And what can you say? You can see, it does not wrinkle one iota in front of the best, and I would say that it even keeps more brightness. Perhaps assigning it the title of best lumen that has passed through the channel is not exaggerated, but either way it is an excellent luminous paste. When viewed from the side, the grip surface shows widely spaced grooves forming rectangles. But if the aesthetics of this bezel is impressive, at least to me it seems so, the best thing is its performance. It is the first watch that falls into my hands that has a clutch system, so to speak. To make it turn, it only turns to the left, but you have to press down, and the bezel moves back a couple of millimeters. That's when it releases and can rotate. It does so with 60 well-marked clicks, and when you stop pressing, the bezel returns to its original position and anchors itself in such a way that it is impossible to move it. A very well thought out engineering solution, because the danger of the bezel moving in professional use can have terrible consequences. It is also true that I don't think anyone would buy this watch for diving. Digital technology has long since surpassed mechanical technology. But if divers still wore this type of watch, I think this Ocean Star 600 would become a real bestseller. Functionally, it is irreproachable not only for its excellent waterproofness. There is nothing 600 meters, but for the extreme functionality of the parts that affect in a professional performance. Again, high level, and even more than that, marking its own line and distinguishing itself from the competition. Impressive bezel at the height of everything seen so far. The crystal is sapphire. I would like to know how thick it is and how much it weighs. I will give me with the doubt. But what I have none is of the great quality of the anti-reflective. Magnificent. And I really appreciate the brand that gives this issue the importance it has. You can't imagine the difficulties we have with many watches because of this. Most of them boast that they have it, but for practical purposes we notice it a lot, so a good anti-reflective coating makes it easier to record images. That's why we appreciate so much these watches in which you can really notice it. And not only for that, also for how it influences the aesthetics of the watch. To be able to perceive clearly and without reflections that black dial, where indexes and hands seem to levitate. Magnificent anti-reflective. We arrived at the dial, and I must admit that at first I was not enthusiastic. Too minimalist. But it is not the same to see it in photos than to hold it in your hand, where you appreciate that, while maintaining a very discreet sizes, without boasts of design as we are often accustomed to seeing in this type of watch, where the massiveness of markers, hands, is usually better justified. This MIDO does not resort to that at all, on the contrary. Everything is the minimum expression of the essential, but done with mastery. Visibility, ease of reading the time, in any circumstance, is superior to any diver that has passed through my hands. That black dial, as black as the blackest, coupled with excellent anti-reflective, allows a reading of the time with enormous ease, both in full sun and in complete darkness, thanks to the excellent lumen. On the perimeter we see the minute indexes, white painted bars, and coinciding with the hours just slightly larger. Between 25 and 35 they disappear, as that place is occupied by the Swiss maid. The hour markers have the three most basic shapes of geometry: circles, squares at 3, 6, and 9 o'clock, at 6 o'clock double, and at 12 o'clock a large inverted triangle. Overall, I have to say that I like the Ocean Star 200 markers better. These remind me too much of the Submariner. They are all applied and outlined in polished metal that shines brightly when the light hits it squarely, and barely visible when the blackness takes over the dial and only the lumen shines. I love that effect. Either everything reflects or everything is matte, but you can always see the time well, and seeing it when you wake up is a spectacle. It looks like you just charged it, and the best thing is that it stays the same on the bezel as it is on the dial. Everywhere it shines and does so with similar intensity. Once again reaching for excellence, and it's been a few times now. I like that the 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock markers are the same size, that the date window doesn't cut it off. I'm not a big fan of symmetry though. The watch is not looking for that either, but for maximum visibility with the most basic and minimalist elements. The data is shown negative, and because of that, and the absence of magnifying glass or cyclops, it is perfectly camouflaged on the dial. Below the triangle, we have the brand name applied in a highly reflective metallic finish, and it is impossible not to shine as soon as a little light hits it. Underneath, the automatic legend painted in white. Above 6 o'clock, the name of the watch, Ocean Star 600, and below it, in orange, the chronometer that tells us that it is a COSC certified watch, meeting the highest standards of the Swiss watch industry. Let's go with the hands, which, if I remember correctly, are the same as those of its brother, the Ocean Star 200. Interestingly, they are the same width. Since normally the horary usually has more muscle, but these only differ in length. Both are skeletonized in the first section and then feature 3 facets. The center is filled with the excellent lumen, and on the 2 sides, polished metal that shines brightly, as well as the profile of the indexes. The cutter is a slightly counterbalanced baton, slightly counterweighted and with an inverted lollipop at the tip, orange and filled with lumen. These 2 strokes of color in the chronometer legend and at the tip of the second hand give a touch of joy to a very sober palette where the black color of the watch and the green of the lumen dominate. And once the review is done, it's time for the summary. And the truth is that I don't even know where to start. The defects it has are minuscule compared to its goodness. The almost childish drawing on the cover, or the hole of the helium valve, are more than defects. They are appreciations of taste, in which not everybody has to agree. There will also be those who do not agree with the fact that it has a 3 Hz caliber. I would also prefer to see the slicer dance more gracefully. But I'm not complaining, because in exchange I have 80 hours of power reserve. What I think no one can dispute is that this watch borders on excellence in many respects. Just like its brother makes me question many things. For example, if my dream Seiko Marine Master 300 is so worthwhile after having this beast of a man. I confirm MIDO as my favorite Swiss brand, and now I will enumerate the long list of qualities of this Ocean Star 600. It is equipped with a very precise movement, a COSC certified chronometer with 80 hours of power reserve, waterproof to 600 meters with helium valve. It is equipped with a clutch bezel that anchors it, preventing it from moving if you don't want it to. The best lumen we have seen to date. The best anti-reflective. The best adjustment system in the closure. A bracelet at the same height, and overall an imposing watch. The only question I have is how that PVD coating will behave over time. If I had bought it new, I would probably go for the steel finish. But not because I like it better. This one just blows me away. But because by putting that kind of money into it, I want it to have as much longevity as possible, and for my children to inherit it in good condition. Otherwise, I could not be more satisfied. It is by far my best watch, and for my taste, the best-looking diver in my collection. It conveys a sense of quality both to the eye and to the touch that has impressed me, and makes me wonder if I will not be very close to finding that top that separates the two. The quality of brand equity and intangibles. I can't imagine how it could be improved. Well, yes, if MIDO had a manufacture caliber available. Something like the Oris 400 with 120 hours of power reserve. But that extra, which does not ensure better chronometry but a greater power reserve, which always comes in handy. I do not know if it is something for which I would be willing to pay so much difference in price. In addition, this Ocean Star 600 is put on top of everything as a watch with the best possible readability in any circumstance, both day and night. And if you analyze its qualities, if I were a diver and there were no digital ones, I would buy one of these for sure. What it has done is to confirm in style the excellent impression I had of the brand, to the point of making it my favorite Swiss, and putting more and more in question that leadership assigned by default to Seiko. watches out of 2. 2 MIDO above all and without buts. It is much more than I expected. I am only more eager to continue testing more watches of this excellent brand. And so far today's video that I hope you liked it. I thank you very much that you have stayed until the end. And if you want to leave us a like, it would be great. Next week, if you want, God willing, see you in another one. Greetings from the team and see you soon.